What's going on, everyone? DeFi Sean here from Krypton Cause Investing, back with a crypto market update. Now, we did take the weekend off, so let's go ahead and see what happened over the weekend. Our last update was Friday, and we are just 24 hours away from the US election, which I personally think will have a big impact on crypto, Bitcoin, and the overall markets in general. We're also going to touch on some articles, exactly what can we expect depending on who wins and different things like that. But first things first, let's go over to coin market cap. We do have a crypto market cap of 2.24 trillion, 24-hour volume up 25% to 73.97 billion. Now, our fear and greed is down pretty significantly from Friday. I want to say we were around 66. We're currently at 53. Now, our BTC dominance is holding strong at 60%, with our ETH dominance at 13. Now, what did our blue chip cryptos do? So Bitcoin has dropped below that 70,000 mark to 68.3. We'll talk a little bit about what might have caused that. Ethereum dropped as well at 2.4K, down 2% the last 7 days, down 0.39% the last 7 days. But if you look, the 24-hour marks, they are slightly up, but again, pretty much breaking even. BNB is holding above that 550 at 557. Solana is holding above that 150 at 162. Dogecoin did take that dip out of that 16 cent range to the 15, but it is up 7.27% from yesterday. Same thing with Shiba Inu. It's up almost 4%. Pepe, the most volatile, up 3%. Then, of course, my personal favorite, as you guys know, Kronos is up 1.57%. So we did see an overall tick down from Friday, but we are seeing a slight tick up from Sunday. So overall, again, Bitcoin did drop below that 70,000. So let's go ahead and take some looks and see exactly what might have caused that. So first up, we have Trump dump. Crypto liquidations hit 350 million as Bitcoin drops below 69K. So crypto market liquidations almost hit 350 million as Bitcoin briefly dipped below 69,000, with traders seemingly jittery in the lead up to the US presidential election on November 5th. And again, we're about 24 hours away from, I think, voting starting to happen, or at least in my area. In all, 349.8 million was liquidated across 259.7 million long bets and 90.1 million short bets on November 3rd. So again, people are getting a little jittery. They're very nervous, I think, about what's going to happen, because depending on what happened, definitely could swing Bitcoin either 10% up or 10% down pretty quickly. So again, people are probably getting a little nervous, maybe putting a little bit more money up than they probably should, or that they're more comfortable with. But let's go ahead, dig a little bit deeper and talk about what's happening with this election and also what happened in previous election cycles with Bitcoin. So we all know the easiest way to predict the future is to see what happened in the past. And we all know that definitely applies to Bitcoin and crypto. So we're going to kind of go over what happened the last election cycles. Now, I will say this bear cycle, or whatever we want to call it that we're in right now, has definitely been unlike anything else. I think it's COVID, all kinds of different things going on in the world that we typically aren't dealing with that may be affecting it. But with that said, I still think it's important that we go ahead and look what previously happened with the last elections going back to 2012. So Bitcoin likely to rally after the US election. Whether Kamala Harris or Donald Trump becomes US president probably won't dictate Bitcoin's price growth. Again, I would probably disagree with that. Trump is so much more crypto friendly that I think him winning definitely will be more pro crypto than Kamala Harris winning. So Bitcoin is likely up to 100,000 after the US election if history is any guide. BTC is undervalued compared with previous cycles. So coming on down, we have 2012. So in 2012 election, which also took place on November 5th, Bitcoin was hovering around $11. So kudos to anyone that got into it at that time. I didn't kind of get into it until around that 2017 mark. But again, it was at $11. The top of the cycle occurred in November 2013. So if you notice, the top of the cycles always occur a year after the election, which saw the price rocket by almost 12,000%, going up to $1,100. Now we're fast forwarding to 2016. During the first week of November, the price of Bitcoin was approximately $700. Again, even if you got in there, Awesome for you. It peaked in December 2017. So again, roughly a year later at around 18,000, going up a whopping 3,600%. Now, 2020 is when the real craziness started. Of course, that was the COVID times and all kinds of different things going on. So the November 2020 election that coincided with the COVID-19 pandemic, Bitcoin rallied 478% to a market top of around 69,000 again a year later. If you notice that trend, it's always topping out a year later. It hit a record high of 73,000 in March of 2024, which again was earlier this year. After each event, with the price of Bitcoin so much higher than the 4 years before, the size of the jump has dropped, providing diminished returns. The percentage decrease between the first and second is 70%, second and third is 87%, and the next one was around 90%. So that implies a post-election rally of about 47.8%. So basically it's saying the higher Bitcoin goes up, the less of a percent hike it makes, which again makes sense because the price is getting so high. So if we translate that, this cycle, it will tick up in about a year to 47.8% up, which would put us at about $103.5 thousand Bitcoin. So hey, if you tell me that November of 2025, we are sitting at 103,000 Bitcoin, I can definitely take that. That would be very awesome to see. And I would consider that a win, definitely. All right, so before we hop on over to the meme and the DeFi markets to see how they held up over the weekend, let's go ahead and check out what some experts are saying if Trump wins or if Kamala Harris wins. So if Trump wins, one of them saying we're going to have a $90,000 Bitcoin on the back of a Trump victory. We have another one saying we will have a new record and an eventual price of $100,000 Bitcoin. Then we have an even more bold one that's saying 125K Bitcoin by the end of 2024. That is pretty bold, but Trump has been so bullish that I definitely could see a world where that happens. So what happens if Kamala Harris wins? We have one estimate saying 30% drop to 50,000. We have another one saying $75,000 Bitcoin by the end of this year if Harris wins. So the common consensus, even though I don't necessarily agree with it, but hey, what do I know? That any outcome, most analysts seem to agree that Bitcoin and other crypto assets are resilient enough to withstand whatever outcome. So I will say, I do think if Trump wins, we will have an immediate tick up. If Kamala Harris wins, we will have an immediate tick down because she's made it pretty clear she's coming for crypto and she's putting in that regulation, which I know a lot of people are not the biggest fan of. Now, Bernstein projects that Bitcoin will hit 200,000 by the end of 2025. Also, from earlier in the video, keep in mind that's probably when we're going to hit our top. If it holds true, is a year from today. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to see $125,000 Bitcoin or we're not going to see $150,000 Bitcoin, just that the top of it will more than likely be a year from right now. So the overall consensus seems to be that no matter what happens with the election, that everything's going to be okay with crypto. I have very, very mixed feelings about that. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and hop on over to that DeFi market and see how it's held up. So basically, even with our crypto market cap for DeFi at 88.1 billion, trading volume up 2% at 3.5. Of course, we have our Avalanche, our Chainlink, our Uniswap. Far as our top gainers the last 24 hours, we have Cpool up 10%, ENA up 8%, and BB up 6%. So nothing crazy. Everything's just kind of holding steady. Now our meme market, let's see if we had any big gainers. So market cap is up 4% to 55 billion. Volume is up 29% to 6.4 billion. Very interesting to see because we kind of been seeing 30% up, 30% down, 30% up. So let's pay attention to tomorrow's video if we are going to have a 30% drop down from this 6.4 billion. Of course, Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, Pepe, no surprises there. 24-hour gainers, we do have ACT up 65%. Good old Fart Coin up 43%, Loose up 43%, MAGA, which I was definitely predicting these ones were going to be there, 37%, MAGA Trump up 29%. We also have Department of Government Efficiency up 21%. So overall, meme market's actually holding up pretty well. But let's go ahead and check back in with all this tomorrow. Tomorrow is election day. If you're not going to, you definitely need to consider getting out there and vote. But that's going to do it for today's video. And until next time, trade safe.